hope you enjoyed your October, no matter if you celebrate its holidays or not. I know I did. I did end up delaying some videos though. And if you can tell by the title, this is just not going to be my normal video. I do have some characters skipped out. I just need to figure out how to function my camera. So instead, today, to mark the end of this weird webcam era, I'm just gonna talk to the camera for maybe even just 5 minutes and just explain some ground rules about like the world and how it functions and like the history. I was thinking of like doing this after I finish the entire Pantheon, but with the way things are going, I think I should at least just have one video like this now. So let's just talk about the timeline and then see where we go from there. Also, I need to stop fidgeting with this mic. It's going to mess up the audio. So, I am going to start from the way I mapped out the timeline. I mark 0 as the time where you can mark the first civilization, and it's, when I say civilization, I mean like a group of people actually starting to work together towards an end goal of survival. So most, if not all, cities started out nomadic until something forced them into one place to be stagnated, or some actually stayed into the modern era to be still nomadic. It really depends on the intents purposes. It really depends on like the city and the circumstances each groups of peoples went through. But we have 7, if I can count, 7 main ages. You know, like how in our world we have like our Iron Age and our Gold Age. In our I think we're like in either industrial or technological age. Well, this world has that too. Without going past 0, and that has like 3 major extinctions I haven't figured out yet. Besides like volcano. I have the 7 after 0. So the one where I'm usually making my videos take place is the ancient era. Ancient era is, I wouldn't say like, it's like mid tier on like how long it lasted. It's marked between the transition between blind worship to worship like they actually know, like they give the worship a name. And then is ended with the first conflict. Really, no one really has a set concrete date on when the ancient era started, but it was really a transitional period from the Aeon of Mythics into the ancient era. So the Aeon of Mythics is really when the first civilizations were popping up. They were like all nomadic, and they were just gaining like sense of like how the world was working around them. And of course, with the higher intelligence and the like intelligence is developing, they were starting to connect with the energies around them. And energy is like a very big thing in this world. Energy flows and really is a dictator on like weather relationships, how like a mood will be today. There's different energies in the world, and keeping the energies balanced leads to more positive things, because you want to keep everything balanced. So if you try to like negate negative energies and keep the positive energies, well, then some things will lose control and become a bit more wish-washy and ways that you can't really work with. And if you stick with negative energies, then really it just, negative energies, things are going to go wrong. Everything you do will go the exact opposite. So it's really a spectrum, and you want to keep within the middle to have the best possible result. I didn't explain that well because I haven't really thought through, but if you go too far into positive, it's like you can have too much happiness. Too much happiness can lead to overconfidence, and overconfidence can lead to accidents that could have been avoided. And then too much negativity, you don't really let anyone in. You would need help, but you can't reach out. Negative energies, that's a popular thing people know of and think of. So you want to stay more in the middle. And that in the Aeon of Mythics was really that time where people were starting to navigate that. And so that's why there's still a position in most cities, even in the modern era, where there is a person to read the energies around the city to make sure that nothing goes awry, and if the energies start tilting, that they report it, and so the city can prepare for the consequences of which way the energies are being tilted into. And then Shilon was the first god to actually touch base with the world, to come out of the outer lands into the inner lands. And so Ki really is what sparked the transition from the Aeon of Mythics into the ancient era. But you can't really say that Kyrs' actions was the marker of that start. It's really wishy-washy, because you need more gods to come in. And so really there's this little time period that doesn't really have a name, that is really transitional. And that's the stories I'm telling you about, the transition from the Aeon of Mythics into the ancient era. Because the ancient era is when a lot of cities have officially started to settle and started to actually connect and see where these energies actually lead to. And all these energies lead back to the outer lands. Sorry, this new mask is I'm getting used to it. It's actually pretty comfortable. But with all the gods starting in the outer lands and really not having a form until the peoples in the inner lands interacted with the energies more, it's really how that worked. And when they finally get a form and they see, I want to actually help that group of people, I resonate with that group of people, then they will touch base into the inner lands, whether that be just sending gifts like Shilon did, or actually physically going into the town like Rowan did. Each god has their own attempt into how they approach a city, and as time goes on and the pantheon splits into smaller and smaller branches, gods can be created accidentally. There is a god of bubbles, who I don't think I named. I might have named, maybe not. I mentioned the god of bubbles in the story that I wrote in my junior year, but the way that she was created was actually through the laughter and happiness of children throughout smaller cities whenever they saw bubble-like substances. So then you got the god of bubbles, children, laughter, bubbles, laughter, and I think it was rainbows. I think that was the 3 things I signed to that god. But no one sat down and said, you know what I want? You know what I really need in my life? Bubbles. It was a really accidental split into the pantheon. And that's where a lot of minor gods that can't leave the Elder Lands come from. All like small actions that can be seen throughout all of the inner lands, like children just having fun with their bubble substance kind of thing. And then from the ancient era, it is ended with the first conflict. I have not named the cities that the first conflict has arose from, but I do know that the winning side does get the god of war. And the god of war so far has only 2 sectors, war and sunflowers. I might end up changing the name, but essentially it's a sunflower. But this is really the time where chaos was really at wait, let me Nope. One second. There we go. I need to get my pronoun list out. Oh, yeah, it's them. Okay. Where chaos was at Zhir's prime. I swear I know what I'm talking about. Was really at Zhir's prime. Because peace was off into the smaller island. So, the energies were getting off. Chaos was kind of just having Zhir's fun, and just really messing with everything. And I had mentioned chaos before in Rowan's story, because the cause of like the plague and the smaller disasters within the town that Rowan decided to go to was really caused by a neighboring city being taken as a foothold for chaos. And because with the Neo-Ancients, which, is chaos, virtue, vices, and peace, I think that's all of them. There's 10, so I think I'm missing one. Oh yeah, curses and blessings. I completely forgot about curses and blessings. Curses, blessings, chaos, peace, vices, and virtues are all the neo-gods. Because, and they are like, they officially get their footholding towards the end of the ancient era. So even though chaos god was towards the beginning, middle beginning kind of thing, with Rowan, Zhir's temple wasn't really built until the last tail end of the era, which is why Zhe is considered a neo-ancient. So with peace out in an island thinking, hey, chaos is going to cause the destruction of the 2 major continents, but Zhe won't come here to the smaller one. Chaos was in free reign because peace wasn't there to balance it off. So that obviously tilted the energies to go onto the negative side of the spectrum and cause a lot of rift between people. And so in the north, when chaos was just kind of like exploring and decided, hey, I'm done psychologically messing with this small southern seaport, I'm going to go to the north and see what's going up there. Zhe caused what was just a small argument between 2 leaders to get blown out of proportion into a whole war kind of thing. So this is was considered the Age of Trials, because for the next, I believe it's 5 decades, over the span of 50 years, chaos has free reign on the two biggest continents. A lot of conflicts arise, and really it gets really out of hand, and a lot of war, battle, and victory based gods are created. First of being the war god for the victor's place, and they were created. I haven't really worked out this god yet, so I don't really know the identity I'm going to give them. But this god was really came into being to be that this town was doing what they did not know what the outcome is going to be. There has never been a really big conflict that you would actually go and invade another city to work out your differences. Until then, it was really debate-based, or you just redrew the lines and you just avoided your neighboring city during harvest. But this is like the first time someone's going to go head-to-head and actually do something that was kind of like on the spectrum of violence, because it was violent. It was the first conflict, like the first major conflict that sparked like the rest of the conflicts. So before each battle, they would go and look at their town's national flower, which was this flower that was like a flame, and they're like in this plains area, so it was like abundant. And it was like their main source of heat, and what they used for like cooking, metalworking. Like if you worked out this flour properly, you could get a really good heat source out of it. So they would go to this flower and they would give their hopes and what they wanted out of this battle, basically. And each time they did this, the stronger the flower they specifically were doing got, until the god of war sparked from it. So that's why we get a god of war and sunflowers, because essentially this god was born from a sunflower. And so after the first conflict was basically initiated, everything else was cast our way. The place where Elena was staying had a few conflicts of its own, but Elena actually went into the city and put protective barriers and provided materials to keep the town's energies at least somewhat leveled, so they wouldn't be impacted as much. So they actually became very peaceful, and also the reason why they're so ahead in technology, just behind Skjor, actually. Skjor didn't have like any big conflicts because they didn't connect with anyone until like the tail end of the Age of Trials. So they only had like one small kind of like battle kind of thing between... Oh, I did not have the maps near me. But basically, no, I don't have the time to look it up. But the two peoples, he split off from the Sunny Lake. Yeah, I called it Sunny Lake, didn't I? Ooh, that doesn't sound good. The two peoples that split from the Sunny Lake were met towards the end of the Age of Trials. They had that small conflict before Skjor retreated back to the mountains, not to see until mid era of recovery. In the second biggest continent, you see a spark in natural disasters, a lot of coastal regions, and even in the main continent, saw a lot of tsunamis. It was very chaotic, and all the energies were tilted towards the negative end of the spectrum. So that's why it's called the Age of Trials, because a lot of a lot of the things that the people did could be viewed as a trial and to triumph over all of these negative events happening back to back over a 50-year time. After that, when peace decided, hey, maybe this wasn't a good idea, and chaos was inching a bit too close to the island peace was residing in, peace came back and decided to spread the influence through, not through boats, but really went back into the outer lands, took a leave from the island. They were in Kyrs. Kyrs was in. Air was in. Hold on. I need to check. Ear. A was in. I'm so sorry. Took a leave from the smallest continent A was in to get back to outer lands, and so the more positive energies would balance out with the more negative spectrum energies that chaos just naturally gives off. And so starts the era of recovery, where all these cities have to start, like, you see like you start to see the biggest shift in government into more military centered choices, but also a lot more treaties that would last into the modern era. So treaties became a big thing. Trade became a big thing too, to help with the cities that were affected by the natural disasters. And it's the era of recovery, because over an 80, I think it was like 80-90 year period, it took for them to really overcome this, just a whole half century in just negative energies. It took a while, but the environment and eventually the peoples were able to overcome and heal and really get back to what they were before. A lot of nomadic peoples ended up becoming more stagnated during the age of trials, and during the era of recovery, they kind of some of them went back to being like nomadic, but like a hybrid kind of thing. Like they assigned 2 places, really, they would go back and forth on, mostly because no one really knew if something like this would happen again. So they really stick with the place they were in, so that if it does happen, it's easy to contact people for help. And then from when the era of recovery kind of like died down, they were getting back into the rhythm of having balanced energies, you get the idealist era. And the idealist era, I would like to say, is one of the more longer ones. The idealist era was really the time where everything just skyrocketed. Arts and like arts kind of stuff skyrocketed. You saw a lot of more writings, paintings, and just like religious artifacts being created. Era of recovery, I forgot to mention, like, the era of recovery sparked a lot of branches in gods that basically were for safety and for comfort. Not comfort, for safety and recovery. Era of recovery, So there's like gods, there's like the god of security that came down, and there's like the god for stability. Those two were twins. They came at the same time, same city. Security and stability were 2 very big gods during this era. And really you saw that big boom of gods that were just really all about overcoming the travesties that occurred in the Age of Trials. Back to the idealist era, you saw a boom in science, discoveries, arts, cultural things. There was no specific type of gods that really manifested during this time period. Just really, you finally get your like gods of writing back in the smaller town, and really these towns and countries that were finally starting to actually like form together started to create gods that were more centric to the values they personally had. So it was really, what am I trying to say? It was really even across the board on like what kind of gods were, and it was really all very cultural place. And the idealist era was really a peaceful era where it was the ideal. They thought in the future, this is how it was going to be. No, there was basically no conflict. Trade was going really well, and all the treaties were being upheld. Religion became a big thing. And the way I was thinking like religion would work in this world, because there is one set of pantheon. All the gods came from the same place, and it doesn't really give wiggle room to have different kind of like creation stories. I was thinking how religion works in this world is kind of like the type of worship you do, like the type of way you dedicate yourself to a god, and basically that relationship between the person and the god. So there's like some people who were like lucky enough, like Rowan always stuck to stay in the inner lands, and Olenna liked to stick into the Olenna liked to stick to inner lands with her wife Shalyn. Wow, my mouth is dry. I don't know where this is coming from, but Olenna and Shalyn, who are both married, also stay in the inner lands. So high worshippers, like high ranked worshippers, would actually like work with them. It's kind of like, in a sense, maybe I'm getting this wrong, someone who plays D&D is probably going to be like correcting me like, that's not how it works. But like I was thinking like how a warlock and their patron god, that kind of relationship works. Then there's also a more distant way, like strictly like shrine or certain practices dedicated to gods. And that's really how I was thinking religion. Like the way you identified in religion was really identifying the kind of relationship you had with the god that you're dedicating your time to. The idealist era, like you saw that boom in different types of religion, and art, language was starting to really develop. Writing systems, literacy was at all-time high. It was really the ideal for this world. And that spanned for like a solid 2 centuries, like a solid 2-3 centuries. And then we reached the mechanical age. With so much discovery, you eventually get your mechanical age. It's very similar to what our world's industrial age. Really, Skjor already had like a big foot in the door, because I was like thinking back to, if anyone watched the video, I was thinking back like, hey, a fruit, no matter how much nutrients you pack into that thing, the size of your palm, not really enough nutrients to suffice someone, even if there's like 20 on the antlers of the gift that Shilan gave to the city. So I was thinking, like, the people from Zhir were originally really malnourished, but as time goes on, they evolved to actually not have to live off of so much nutrients, but in turn, they get really weak muscles and bones. So they actually develop a lot of mechanical stuff early on, and they are always number one in technology. So really, look, take a breath. The mechanical age doesn't really start with their mechanical like discoveries. It really like marks when everyone else was starting to develop their own technology, and where a lot of things got popularized. I imagine the world to have like very medieval infrastructure. As each country has its own kind of like architecture, because that's like realistic. Like you can't expect every single country to have the same architecture, but and along the lines, it's in my own mind, I imagine like the basic town to have like medieval kind of like houses and stuff mixed in with some gothic buildings, kind of how like that kind of like feeling and aesthetic of architecture. That's not really set in stone. Everything that I sound iffy on isn't really set in stone, because I need to really think longer on it, but that's like what, just for like a image, that's what I was like kind of thinking for. But for the mechanical age, you started to incorporate more technology into the houses, into the architecture. Just for my own liking, there's no really modern development in the architecture. It's just kind of like a blend of technology and more older buildings. Think steampunk. This is really when the world becomes a bit more like steampunk-esque. And so for mechanical age, it's like how long did industrial age last? I don't know that. I don't know how long the industrial age lasts, but let's just say this one was a solid like 500 years. Like, technology at the beginning was a little slow to develop. Like, the moment the people started technology, it's like, hey, here's this thing to make life easier. Now you don't have to cook over a fire. People are like, nice, let's stick with just this. But then, of course, there's always that person just like, what if we could take this a step further? And the moment someone takes one too many steps forward, it's all downhill from there. So, they spent a good portion of that 500 years just taking small steps into just improving everyday life, until that like slow progress was thrown out the window, and people were just making things left and right. Just whenever an idea popped into an inventor's head, they're like, well, let's make that reality. And so there's a lot of technology now. And then we get into the modern era that I talk about. Mechanical age really brought in a lot, even more science-based gods. Don't know why I forgot that word. Came in. Science-based gods came in. Metal-based gods, like mineral materials that you can use to build stuff. Building gods became very popular. So that's what that came from the mechanical age. And then the modern era, there's always going to be that one inventor that's just like, let me take credit for that one thing I didn't do. So conflict starts to spark in the technology era. In the technology, treaties sometimes get broken because, you get corrupt leaders in power and you're like, yeah, this thing's in place, but also I really want that land. Not something I'm condoning, but sometimes people get into power that shouldn't get into power. And so smaller conflicts arise. The energies are still balanced, but now in the idealist era, it was strictly in the middle. Because peace dragged chaos. Peace dragged chaos into the outer lands, so it wouldn't interfere so much, and peace sent blessings to control vices and virtues for not like taking over, because vices and virtues are twins. Both are chaotic no matter what their domain suggests. So they like to just mess with things for the hell of it, even vices, because vices was really looked at his domain. It's just like, yeah, that is something I'm supposed to do, but also I have this person right here to deal with, so might as well just help with those plans. So blessings kind of really had to bring control over vices and virtues and drag them back into the outer lands. So the idealist era, reason why it was so calm and peaceful, energies strictly in the middle. But as that time went on and people were getting settled into that, chaos, vices and virtues started to slip through the cracks, and the energies started back into its normal rotation again. So it started going back and forth, but really the things that happened in the Age of Trials, you couldn't fully recover from. They did overcome it, they did grow from it, but there will still be like the scars in the earth from what happened from the Age of Trials. So you could never go back to the ancient era or the Aeon of Mythics, like some would hope for. So the flow of energy was big, a bit more wider, and so conflicts still arose. Now, not as big as what happened in Age of Trials, but stuff still happens. Things get out of hand. And really, it's just the natural balance of things. Nothing can be 100% perfect, no matter how much the people in this world want it. And so in the modern era, we just bring, it's just where we are at the story. I believe I will have one story in my senior project, which I'm going to start writing in January, take place in the modern era. And it's really where we are in our own world. They have the technological advancements. They're still making technological advancements. There has been a small rise in, yes, we acknowledge the gods that exist, but I'm not going to actively seek out help from them. So that is a rise in relationship and religion. And some countries, how do you explain borders? I need to think about, like, some countries, kind of fall, some rose, some became bigger, some become smaller, conflicts happen, new discoveries are still being made. Now historians are more focusing on what happened before zero. And yeah, it's the modern era. So the creation of gods have really became higher in accidental rates. And so there's some gods that have been made maybe in the modern era, like the old, what am I trying to say? Let me rephrase that. Most gods in the modern era are accidental. It's rare and far between if a god was made on purpose. And that's where we are at in the modern era. Most buildings have their medieval Gothic look, but you have the twist with like machinery in it. Machinery is a big thing in the modern era, but some places, mostly like the small island I'm going to talk about when I talk about peace, also still hold on to their old traditions. So you can see that stark difference. Some countries have let go from their ways from the past because maybe it was lost during the age of trials, and some really stuck with their culture and traditions and really didn't find a way to make new ones. Not find a way to make new ones. Didn't have a need to make new ones because nothing big was lost. Like some parts of the culture might have been lost, but a big portion of it still survived for it to still be practiced in the modern era. That's what I'm trying to say. This is a 41-minute video. I'm going to stop right here. Timeline should not have taken that long. But thanks for coming to my rambles. This is why I need a script. I hope this makes up for a month of no content. And have a lovely November whenever I upload this. Bye.